Elias lived in a world of glass and steel, where everything had a price, but nothing had a value. He spent his days in a tall office building that touched the clouds. From his high window, the people below looked like tiny ants. He was a man who won every race and reached every goal. His name was famous in the city. Yet he felt a strange, empty feeling inside. His penthouse apartment was filled with expensive art and modern furniture. Every object was perfect and every room was clean. Large windows showed a beautiful view of the city lights at night. To anyone watching from the outside, Elias had a dream life. He owned the best clothes and the fastest gadgets. But when he walked through his front door, the silence was always too loud for comfort. Every morning began with a routine of checking his bank accounts and business reports. He watched the numbers grow with a cold, professional focus. These numbers were how he measured his worth in the world. He felt a small spark of pride when the graphs went up. However, that spark never lasted more than a few minutes. He was always looking for the next number, the next deal, and the next victory. In the corporate world, Elias was known as a master of strategy. He could solve any problem and close any deal. He worked long hours and rarely took a day off to rest. He believed that hard work was the only way to find happiness. He pushed himself and his team to be the best every single day. He was at the very peak of his career with nowhere higher to go. Despite the constant noise of the busy city, his personal life felt strangely quiet. He had many business partners, but very few real friends. He attended many parties, but had few real conversations. He lived in a crowd, yet he felt completely alone. The success he had worked so hard to build felt like a beautiful box with nothing inside it. He was starting to wonder if this was all life had. If you find this story helpful, please subscribe to our channel and like this video to see more. Your support helps us create more meaningful stories for you. Elias was a man who had everything, but he felt like he had nothing at all. He decided it was time to look for answers. He wanted to understand why his heart felt so heavy when his pockets were so full of wealth. One afternoon, he bought a new luxury watch that cost as much as a small car. He thought the shiny gold and the complex gears would make him feel better. For an hour, he felt a sense of excitement as he looked at his wrist. He showed it to a colleague, and they were impressed. But by the evening, the watch felt heavy. It was just another object in a house full of objects. The big, empty house echoed with his footsteps as he walked to the kitchen. He realized that his home did not feel like a home at all. It felt like a museum where he was the only visitor. He had the best kitchen equipment, but he rarely cooked a meal for himself. He had the softest bed, but he often stayed awake until the sun came up, worrying about his future goals. He sat on his balcony and looked at the city below him. He realized he had achieved every goal he set when he was a young student. He had the money, the title, and the power. He had checked every box on the list of success. By every standard of society, he was a winner. Yet, the victory felt hollow. He had reached the mountaintop only to find it cold and lonely. A strange hunger lived in his chest, and food could not fix it. It was a hunger for meaning and a hunger for connection. He felt like a traveler who had reached his destination but forgot why he went there. He spent his life chasing the word more. He wanted more money, more respect, and more property. But no matter how much he gathered, the hunger remained exactly the same as before. Success had become a heavy weight on his shoulders instead of a joy. He felt the pressure to maintain his image and protect his wealth. He was afraid of losing what he had, even though what he had did not make him happy. He was trapped in a cycle of stress and competition. He realized that his life was a performance for an audience that did not really care about his well-being. Something was deeply wrong with his life, but he did not have the words to describe it. He felt out of balance with the world around him. He was a successful man who was failing at the art of living. He decided to step away from his busy office for a short while. He needed to find out why he was so dissatisfied. This was the beginning of his quiet journey toward change. Scientists often talk about a concept called the hedonic treadmill. It explains why humans find it so hard to stay happy. When something good happens, we feel a sudden burst of joy. But very quickly, our brains get used to the new situation. We return to our original level of happiness and we start looking for the next big thing. It is a cycle that never ends unless we stop it ourselves. Our brains are designed to adapt to new things very quickly. This was helpful for our ancestors who needed to stay alert for danger. But in the modern world, this ability makes it difficult to appreciate what we have. We buy a new house, and for a month it is wonderful. Then it simply becomes the place where we sleep. We stop noticing the beauty because it has become our new normal life. Elias once bought a fast, red sports car that he had wanted for years. He thought that owning such a machine would finally make him feel successful. The smell of the new leather and the sound of the engine were exciting at first. He felt like a different person when he drove it through the city streets. He believed this car was the answer to his boredom and his inner feeling of emptiness. For exactly 3 days, the car brought him a sense of genuine joy. He looked forward to every drive and felt proud when people stared at the shiny paint. He felt like he had finally arrived at a place of true satisfaction. The car was a symbol of his hard work and his high status. He told himself that he deserved this luxury and that it would keep him happy for a long time. By the 4th day, however, the magic began to fade away. The engine was still powerful, but the sound was now just a normal noise. The leather seats were still soft, but they were just places to sit while stuck in traffic. The car did not change his heart or his thoughts. It was just a way to get from one meeting to another. The treadmill had caught up with him once again. Our brains are naturally wired to focus on what is missing in our lives. We notice the one thing that is wrong rather than the 10 things that are right. This is an old survival instinct that kept us safe from predators. If something was missing, it could be a threat to our safety. In our modern, safe lives, this instinct makes us focus on the problems and ignore the many blessings. Long ago, focusing on what was wrong helped humans survive in the wild. A small noise in the bushes or a lack of food were problems that needed immediate attention. This negative focus saved our lives for thousands of years. We are the children of people who were very good at finding problems. But today, we live in houses with plenty of food, yet our brains are still searching for threats. Today, this ancient focus creates a constant state of lack in our minds. We look at our lives and see a list of things we do not have yet. We compare our homes to bigger homes and our careers to more successful ones. This habit of looking for the missing piece makes us feel like we are never enough. It turns our modern world into a place of constant stress and quiet worry. Elias felt like he was running faster and faster just to stay in the same place. He was working more hours, earning more money, and buying more things. But his internal state of happiness stayed exactly the same. He was on a treadmill that never stopped moving. He was exhausted from the effort of trying to catch a feeling of satisfaction that was always just a few steps ahead of him in the future. Modern ambition can be an endless and very exhausting race. We are told that we must always want more to be successful. We are taught that being satisfied is the same as being lazy. This creates a society of people who are physically wealthy but mentally tired. We chase the horizon, forgetting that the horizon moves as we move. We are running toward a finish line that does not actually exist. Elias felt like a hamster running in a wheel made of pure gold. The wheel was beautiful and expensive, but he was still just going in circles. He had all the comforts of the world, but he lacked the freedom of a peaceful mind. He was a prisoner of his own desires and his own expectations. He realized that more stuff would never be the solution to his feeling of running in place. He was always looking at the horizon, never at his own feet. He was so focused on where he wanted to be that he never noticed where he actually was. He lived in the future, planning his next move and his next purchase. He missed the sunlight on his desk and the taste of his lunch. He was physically present in his life, but his mind was always somewhere else, chasing a ghost. The joy of reaching a big goal often vanishes much faster than we expect. We work for years to get a promotion, But the feeling of victory lasts only a week. Then we start worrying about the next promotion or the new responsibilities. This is the great trap of the modern world. We spend our lives preparing to be happy later, but we forget how to be happy right now with what we have. One rainy Tuesday, Elias decided he had seen enough of his office. He cancelled his meetings and left the city behind. He drove his expensive car toward the countryside, away from the tall buildings and the noise. The air began to smell like wet grass and earth. He did not have a plan, but he felt a strong need to reconnect with something real. He was looking for his lost self. He drove to the small, quiet town where he had grown up as a boy. The streets were narrow and the houses were old but well kept. He had not visited this place in many years. It felt like stepping back in time. The pace of life here was much slower than in the city. People walked slowly and stopped to talk to each other. It was a world that did not care about his bank account. His old teacher, Mr. Miller, still lived in a small house near the school. Mr. Miller was a wise man who had taught Elias many years ago. Elias remembered him as someone who was always calm and kind. He knocked on the door, feeling a little nervous. He wondered if the old man would even remember him. When the door opened, Mr. Miller smiled as if he had been expecting a guest. Mr. Miller's house was small, simple, and smelled of herbal tea and old books. There were no expensive paintings or modern gadgets here. The furniture was made of dark wood and looked very comfortable. Sunlight entered through the windows and hit the colorful rugs on the floor. It was a warm place that felt full of life and memories. Elias felt his heart rate slow down as he sat in a large chair. They sat at a simple wooden table together, and Mr. Miller made some tea. They did not talk about business or money or the busy city. Instead, they talked about the weather, the birds in the garden, and the books on the shelf. The conversation was easy and natural. Elias realized how long it had been since he had talked to someone without wanting something from them. It was a moment of true human connection. The meal they shared was very basic, just fresh bread, some cheese, and a few apples. There were no fancy spices or expensive wines on the table. However, Elias found that the food tasted better than any meal he had eaten in the city's best restaurants. He noticed the crunch of the apple and the saltiness of the cheese. He was actually eating, not just consuming calories while looking at a phone screen. Mr. Miller spoke about his small garden with a great amount of love and pride. He described the way the flowers bloomed in the spring and how he cared for the vegetables. He did not own much land, but he treated every inch of it as a treasure. He was not trying to grow more than he needed. He was simply enjoying the process of watching life grow. His happiness was rooted in the present. Elias saw a deep, quiet peace in the old man's eyes that he had never seen in his business partners. Mr. Miller did not look like he was waiting for something better to happen. He looked like he was exactly where he wanted to be. This was a shocking contrast to Elias's own life. Elias was a millionaire who felt empty, while Mr. Miller had very little but seemed completely full and satisfied with life. "I have enough," the teacher said with a gentle smile when Elias asked about his simple life. Those 3 words hit Elias like a physical weight. "I have enough." It was a sentence Elias had never said in his entire adult life. He always wanted more. He realized that enough is not a number in a bank account. It is a state of mind and a choice to be satisfied with the present. Elias realized he had completely forgotten the meaning of the word enough. In his world, enough was a sign of failure or a lack of ambition. But looking at Mr. Miller, he saw that enough was actually a sign of freedom. If you have enough, you are no longer a slave to your desires. You can stop running on the treadmill and finally start living. He had been chasing more while ignoring his enough. Mr. Miller explained that most people live their entire lives in the gap. This is a psychological space that causes a lot of unhappiness. Elias listened carefully as the old man drew a simple diagram on a piece of paper. The gap is the space between where you are today and where you want to be in the future. It is a space filled with longing and a feeling of being incomplete. The gap is the distance between your current reality and your ideal dream. When we focus on the gap, we only see what is missing. We see the house we don't have, the money we haven't earned, and the person we haven't become. This focus makes us feel like we are failing, even when we are actually doing very well. The gap is a dark place where gratitude cannot grow or survive. Focusing on the gap makes us feel constantly poor, no matter how much money we have. We compare ourselves to a perfect version of the future that does not exist. We forget that our current todays was once a tomorrow we dreamed about years ago. Elias saw himself in this description. He was always looking at the next goal, which made his current achievements feel small and unimportant to his hungry heart. Mr. Miller, on the other hand, chose to live in the gain of his journey. The gain is the opposite of the gap. Instead of looking forward at what is missing, you look backward at how far you have already come. You measure your success by your own progress, not by an impossible ideal. This shift in perspective changes everything. It turns a life of lack into a life of abundance and quiet joy. The old man looked back at his long life and saw many gains. He saw the students he had helped, the garden he had built, and the friends he had made. He did not worry about what he lacked. He celebrated what he had achieved. Elias realized that he had many gains too, but he had never stopped to look at them. He had been so busy climbing that he never enjoyed the beautiful view. Elias returned to the city, but he carried a new idea with him. He decided to practice gratitude like a new skill, just like learning a language or a sport. He understood that he could not wait for the feeling of gratitude to arrive. He had to build it through daily effort. It was a mental muscle that had become weak from lack of use. He was determined to make it strong again. He realized that gratitude was not just a warm feeling that happens by accident. It was a daily choice and a way of seeing the world. It required him to pay attention to the small details of his life. He had to stop living on autopilot and start being present in every moment. He began to look for the good things that were already there, hidden in plain sight throughout his busy day. He started the 3 small things rule every night before he went to sleep. He bought a simple notebook and placed it by his bed. Every evening, he wrote down 3 specific things from his day that he was thankful for. At first, it was difficult to find even one thing. He was so used to seeing problems. But he forced himself to look closer at his life and find the hidden gems. On the very first day, he noticed the way the morning light hit the buildings. He had seen this light thousands of times before, but he had never really looked at it. The golden glow on the glass was actually quite beautiful. He realized that nature provides a free show every morning, but he had been too busy looking at his phone to notice. This was his first small thing for his notebook. On the second day, he focused on the taste of his morning coffee. Instead of drinking it quickly while reading emails, he sat for 5 minutes and just tasted it. He noticed the warmth of the cup in his hands and the rich smell of the beans. It was a small, simple pleasure that made his morning much better. He felt a tiny sense of peace that he had missed for many years. He began to see the people around him in a completely different way. In the past, he saw his employees and service workers as tools to help him succeed. Now, he saw them as human beings with their own stories and struggles. He realized that his life was supported by hundreds of people he usually ignored. This shift in perspective made him feel more connected to the world and much less alone. One evening, he stayed late at the office and saw the woman who cleaned the floors. Usually, he would not even look up from his desk. This time, he stopped and thanked her for her hard work. He noticed her name tag said Maria. They talked for a moment, and her face lit up with a bright smile. He realized that a small word of thanks could change someone's entire evening. Even the bus driver received a genuine smile and a thank you from him. Elias began to realize that gratitude is a social bridge. When he was grateful, people reacted to him with more kindness. The world felt like a friendlier place because he was acting like a friend to it. He was no longer the cold, distant businessman. He was becoming a man who noticed and appreciated the efforts of others. His daily commute was no longer just a waste of time between home and work. He started looking out the window of his car or the train. He saw children playing, trees changing colors, and the interesting architecture of the city. He realized that there is a lot of life happening all around him. He stopped thinking about the next meeting and started enjoying the journey through the city streets every day. He even found beauty in the weather, which he used to complain about. He watched the rain wash the city streets clean and noticed how the air smelled fresh afterward. He saw the patterns of the clouds in the sky. Instead of being annoyed by a rainy day, he was thankful for the water that kept the parks green. He was learning to find something positive in every situation he faced. He made a conscious effort to change his inner language. He noticed how often he said the words, I have to go to this meeting. I have to finish this report. I have to call this client. These words made his life feel like a list of heavy burdens. He realized that his language was creating a sense of stress and pressure that did not need to be there. Instead, he started saying, I get to do these things. This small change in one word transformed his perspective. I get to go to this meeting reminded him that he had a successful career and a voice that people wanted to hear. I get to drive home reminded him that he had a car and a safe place to live. It turned his daily responsibilities into a list of special privileges. I get to work, he thought during a particularly busy and stressful day. He remembered that many people were looking for jobs and struggling to pay their bills. Having a job that challenged him was actually a gift, not a curse. This thought gave him more energy and reduced his stress. He stopped feeling like a victim of his own success and started feeling like a very lucky person. I get to walk, he thought while walking through a local park on a Sunday. He appreciated his health and the strength of his legs. He realized that his body was a complex and wonderful machine that worked hard for him every day. He had often ignored his health while chasing money, but now he felt grateful for every breath. His body was his most important asset, and he finally noticed it. His entire world started to change, because his eyes and his heart had changed. The buildings were the same, and his job was the same, but they looked different to him now. He was finding joy in places where he used to find only boredom. He realized that happiness does not come from changing your circumstances. It comes from changing the way you look at the circumstances you already have. Then, a very difficult and cold winter arrived for Elias's company. The economy changed, and business became much harder than before. He faced problems that he could not solve with just money or hard work. The stress returned, and for a moment, he felt like he might fall back into his old way of thinking. This was the true test of his new practice of gratitude and perspective. A major project that he had worked on for months suddenly failed. It was a big blow to his reputation and his bank account. In the past, this would have destroyed his mood for weeks. He would have been angry and blamed everyone around him. He felt the familiar cold grip of fear in his stomach. The world seemed to be closing in on him, and the darkness was returning. Elias knew that this was not the time for fake happiness or forced smiles. He understood that true gratitude is not about pretending that everything is perfect. That would be a trap of toxic positivity. He allowed himself to feel the disappointment and the sadness of the loss. It is important to be honest about our pain. However, he decided that the pain would not be the only thing he felt. Gratitude is not about ignoring the cold wind that blows against you. It is about acknowledging that the wind is cold, but also noticing that you have the strength to stand against it. It is about seeing the reality of a bad situation without losing hope. Elias realized that his new skill was most important during the hard times, not just when everything was going well in his life. He thought of gratitude as a coat that keeps you warm in the winter. It does not stop the snow from falling, but it changes how you experience the cold. He looked at his failed project and realized that he was still safe. He still had his home, his health, and his new perspective. The loss was real, but it was not the end of his story or his worth as a person. Elias felt the deep pain of his professional loss very clearly. He had put a lot of himself into that work, but he did not let the failure define him. He stayed calm and looked at the situation with clear eyes. He practiced his 3 small things, even on the darkest days. Sometimes his list was just, "I am breathing, I have a friend, and the tea is hot." That was enough. He looked for the light within the dark, even if it was just a small spark. He realized that every failure contains a lesson that can be useful in the future. He began to ask himself what he could learn from this difficult experience. This shift from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "What can I learn from this?" was a powerful move. It turned a negative event into a positive growth opportunity. He was genuinely grateful for the lessons he had learned during the failure. He saw that he had been too arrogant and had missed some important details. This mistake made him a better, more careful leader. He realized that success often hides our weaknesses, but failure shows us exactly where we need to improve. He was thankful for the chance to become a more capable and humble version of himself. He went to his office and thanked his team for their hard work, even though they had lost. He told them that he valued their effort and their loyalty more than the result of one project. This was a new way of leading for him. His team was surprised, but also very relieved. They felt supported instead of blamed. This created a sense of trust that was stronger than any financial victory. They stood together when things were falling apart around them. Elias realized that the relationships he had built were his true wealth. His team worked harder than ever because they felt appreciated. They were not just working for a paycheck, they were working for a leader who cared about them. He saw that gratitude creates a community of people who support each other during the storms of life. Perspective became his most powerful tool for survival in the business world. He stopped seeing every problem as a disaster. He saw them as challenges to be met with a calm mind. He realized that he had survived many difficult things in his life before. This gave him the confidence to face the current crisis. He was no longer a slave to his fear of losing his status or money. He learned that gratitude is loudest in the silence of a difficult time. When things are easy, it is easy to be thankful. But when things are hard, gratitude becomes a revolutionary act. It is a way of saying that you will not let the circumstances control your inner peace. Elias found a quiet strength inside himself that he never knew he had. He was becoming a man of deep resilience. This inner strength gave him the courage to start over again with a new plan. He was not afraid of the work ahead of him. He was actually excited to use his new lessons. He realized that as long as he had a grateful heart, he could never be truly defeated. He had found something that the economy could not touch and that no failure could take away from him. A year later, Elias looked in the mirror and saw a different man. His face looked more relaxed and his eyes were brighter. He still had the same job and lived in the same city. Externally, not much had changed. But internally, he was a completely new person. He had moved from a life of not enough to a life of abundance. He felt a sense of peace he never imagined. He lived in the same penthouse with the same beautiful view of the city, but the way he experienced his home was totally different. It was no longer an empty museum. It was a sanctuary where he could rest and reflect. He filled the space with music and the laughter of real friends. The glass and steel were still there, but they no longer felt cold or distant to him. The glass and steel of the city no longer felt cold or unfriendly. He saw the city as a living, breathing place full of stories and opportunities to be kind. He felt a sense of warmth even in the middle of a busy workday. He was no longer fighting against the world. He was moving with it. He understood that his environment was a reflection of his own internal state of mind. He was the same man, but he had a completely different heart. He still aimed for success, but he no longer needed it to feel worthy. He worked hard because he enjoyed the challenge, not because he was trying to fill a hole in his soul. He was free from the treadmill of never-ending desire. He had found the balance between wanting to grow and being happy with where he was. He finally found the internal peace that comes from the word enough. He knew that he had enough money, enough talent, and enough love. This realization was the greatest treasure of his life. It allowed him to be generous with his time and his resources. He started a foundation to help children in his old town. He was using his success to create a gain for others, not just himself. A grateful heart leaves a legacy of light that touches everyone around it. Elias became a mentor to young professionals, teaching them that true wealth is not just in a bank account. He showed them that gratitude is the key to a meaningful life. His influence spread through the city, not through his deals, but through his kindness. He was finally living a life that had both price and value. Today, take a moment to notice one thing that makes your life beautiful. It could be the taste of your water, the sound of a voice, or the feel of the sun. Gratitude is a skill that anyone can learn at any time. Your life is full of gains if you choose to look for them. Start your own journey today and discover the quiet power of a truly grateful heart.